In this session, we'll discuss about software concepts in distributed systems. Although the hardware is important, the software is even more important. The image that a system presents to its users and how they think about the system is largely determined by the operating system software and not the hardware. In this session, we will introduce the various types of operating systems for the multiprocessor and multi-computers. So starting with loosely coupled software on loosely coupled hardware. Since this is probably the most common combination at many organizations. A typical example is a network of workstations connected by a LAN. Now in this model, each user has a workstation for its exclusive use. It may or may not have a hard disk, but it definitely has its own operating system. All commands are normally run locally right on the workstation. We will see a few commands, starting with the first command, that is rlogin. Rlogin stands for remote login. It is a unique command that allows users to remotely log into a server on the network as if they were at a terminal directly connected to their computer. Now the effect of this command is to turn the user's own workstation into a remote terminal logged in to the remote machine. Commands that are typed on the keyboard are sent to the remote machine and the output of the remote machine is displayed on the screen. To switch to a different remote machine, it is necessary to first log out and then to use the rlogin command to connect to other machine. At any instance, only one machine can be used, and the selection of the machine is entirely manual. The next command is remote copy command, that is RCP. Now, networks of workstation often also have a remote copy command to copy files from one machine to another. For example, a command like RCP machine 1 file 1 machine 2 file 2 will copy the file 1 from machine 1 to machine 2 and give it the name as file 2 over there. Again here, the movement of files is explicit and requires the users to be completely aware of where all files are located and where all commands are being executed. We'll discuss something about a file server now. To provide a shared global file system accessible from all the workstation, the file system is supported by one or more machines called as file servers. The file server accepts requests from users from user program running on the other machines, which are the non-server machines. In this case, the clients are the non-server machines. Each incoming request from the client is examined and executed, and then the reply is sent back to the clients. This is how a file server works. This is just an overview of a file server. Before going to the other topics, you require to know what do you mean by mounting a directory. So once a disk has been partitioned, we are discussing about the Linux operating system over here. So once a disk has been partitioned, Linux needs some way to access the data on the partition. Unlike DOS or the Windows operating system, where this is done by assigning a drive letter to each partition like C drive, D drive. Linux uses an unified directory tree where each partition is mounted at a mount point in that tree. So basically, when we use the term mount, a mount point is a directory that is used as a way to access the file system on the partition. And mounting the file system is the process of associating a certain file system with a specific directory in the directory tree. Now we'll discuss about the hierarchical file systems on the file servers. File servers generally maintain hierarchical file systems, each with a root directory containing subdirectories and files. Workstations can import or mount these file systems, augmenting their local file system with those located on the servers. Now in figure A, we have two servers, server 1, server 2. Now in this, it has mounted the games server, and over here it is the work server. There are two clients, client 1 and client 2. Now, in figure B and in figure C, you can see that both of the clients have mounted both the servers, but they have mounted this in a different form or at different places in their respective file system. The mounting by client 1 is different and the mounting by client 2 is different. Now client 1 in this case has mounted them in its root directory, games and work, and can access them as games and works respectively. Whereas with respect to client 2, client 2 has mounted games in its root directory, but regarding the reading of mail and news as a kind of game has created a directory that is from games to work and mounted it over there. So basically now it can access news using the path of games, work, and then move towards news, rather than client 1. You see, with respect to client 1, the mounting is work and then move to news. So it does not matter where a client mounts a server in its directory hierarchy. It is important to notice that different clients can have different views of the file system. The name of a file depends on where it is being accessed from and how the machine has set up its file system. Because each work system or each workstation operates relatively independently of the other, there is no guarantee that they are all present on the same directory hierarchy to their programs. The operating system that is used in this kind of environment must manage the individual workstation and file servers and take care of the communication between them. Now we will discuss about tightly coupled software on loosely coupled hardware, that is a multi-computer. The goal of such a system is to create the illusion in the minds of the user that the entire network of computers is a single time-sharing system, rather than a collection of distinct machines. We will discuss about a few characteristics of distributed systems. We'll talk about global inter-process communication, process management, and file system. Global inter-process communication. The interprocess communication is the mechanism provided by the operating system that allows processes to communicate with each other. This communication could involve a process letting another process know that some event has occurred, or the transferring of data from one process to another. With respect to process management, it is basically how a process is created, it is destroyed, how the process is started and stopped. And this process management must not vary from machine to machine. With respect to the file system must look the same everywhere too. Having file name restricted to 11 characters in some location and being unrestricted in others is undesirable. Also, every file should be visible at every location, subject to protection and security constraints. And finally, we move towards the last combination, that is, we discuss about multiprocessor time sharing system. So basically we are discussing about tightly coupled software on tightly coupled hardware. While various special purpose machines exist in this category, the most common general purpose example are multiprocessors that are operated as a Unix time sharing system, but with multiple CPUs instead of one CPU. The key characteristics of this class system is the existence of a single run queue. The run queue is a data structure kept in the shared memory. As an example, let's consider the system which has 3 CPUs and 5 processes. Process A, process B, process C, D and E. Now all the 5 processes are located in the shared memory, and 3 of them are currently executing on CPU 1, CPU 2 and CPU 3. So process A is on CPU 1, process B is on CPU 2 and process C on CPU 3. The other 2 processes D and E are also in memory waiting for their turn. Now let's suppose that the process B blocks, waiting for some input output, or maybe the quantum runs out. Either way, the CPU must suspend that process and find another process to run. CPU 2 will normally begin executing operating system code, which is located in the shared memory. Now, after having saved all of B's registers, it will enter a critical region to run the scheduler to look for another process to run. It is essential that the scheduler be run in a critical region to prevent 2 CPUs from choosing the same process to run next. The necessary mutual exclusion can be achieved by using monitors or maybe semaphores, or any other standard construction can be used. Now once the CPU 2 has gained exclusive access to the run queue, it will remove the first entry, that is D, and then exit from the critical region and begin executing D. Initially, execution will be slow since the cache of CPU 2 as of now is full of words belonging to that part of the shared memory containing process B. But after a little while, this will be purged with the cache, and it will be full of D's code and the data. So the execution will speed up. Now because none of the CPUs have local memory and all programs are stored in the global shared memory, it does not matter on which CPU the process runs. If a long running process is scheduled many times before it completes, so then on an average it will spend more than the same amount of time running on each CPU. So in this session, we spoke about the software concepts in distributed system. We discussed about the different operating systems, starting with the network operating system. We spoke about commands like rlogin and rcp. We also discussed in brief about the file servers. Then we moved on to through distributed system, wherein we spoke about some characteristics of the through distributed system. We discussed about the global inter-process communication, the process management, and the file system in through distributed systems. And finally, we discussed about multiprocessor time sharing systems. Thank you.